81 nights out of 84, the same pickup truck was parked inside my ex-wife's garage. I know the exact number because I paid a private investigator to count. She cheated on me while we were married. The court still ordered me to pay her $4,900 a month in alimony, and that truck belonged to the man she cheated with. This is how one folder of photographs saved me over $300,000. I am 51. I was married for 14 years, and I have 2 kids, a girl who is 12 and a boy who is 9. My work ran 24 hours on, 48 off. My whole marriage ran on that clock, and so did her affair. The man was a fence contractor. He put in a new fence at the veterinary clinic where my ex ran the front office. It went on for about a year before I knew anything. I did not catch her. His wife caught him. She did the books for his company. She had a name from his phone, and one of those people search sites sold her my number for $19. She called me on a Sunday morning while I was standing in my own driveway. She did not yell. She went through his credit card charges with me, one at a time, going back 6 months, and every single one of them was within 4 miles of my house. Lunches on days I was on shift, a motel 10 minutes from the clinic, flowers, $80 twice, and none of them ever came to me. A steakhouse on a Saturday night in May, while my wife was supposedly at her sister's. She kept going for 4 minutes. I stood there holding a garden hose, and when she finished, she said, "I am filing Monday, and I thought you deserved to know what I know." Then she said, "Look at the second weekend of May," and hung up. The second weekend of May is my wedding anniversary. I stood in the driveway a long time. Then I went inside, pulled our card statements for the same 6 months, and found her side of those same weekends sitting in plain sight. Gas stations I never used. A pharmacy nowhere near us. I had opened those statements every month and seen nothing. I confronted my wife that night after the kids were down. I put the statements on the dining room table and said, "His wife called me this morning." That was the whole sentence I got out. She admitted it before I finished the second one. No crying at first, just quiet. And she sat down across from me and folded her hands on the table. She said it had been going on since the spring. She said she did not plan it. She said he listened to her. I asked her one question. I asked if he had been in my house. She looked at the table and said, "Twice. Both times I was on shift. Both times my kids were at her mother's." Then she said the thing I have never forgotten. She said, "You were never home. I am a firefighter." 23 years at that point of running into buildings for strangers, and to my own wife, it just meant I was never home. I filed for divorce that month. This is the part that made me want to put my fist through a wall. The affair did not matter. Not to the court. This is a no-fault state. Her cheating had no bearing on money. My attorney told me that in our first meeting. What mattered was math. 14 years of marriage. My captain's salary plus overtime against her front office pay. The judge called it a long-term marriage, looked at the income gap, and ordered me to pay her $4,900 a month for 8 years, 96 payments, $470,000, start to finish, to the woman who cheated on me while the man she cheated with was still in the picture. We were in mediation, a rented conference room. Her attorney slid a single page across the table, and the line item said, "Spousal support, 4,996 months." I did the multiplication on the legal pad in front of me, and her attorney watched me do it. And when I looked up, she was not smirking. She was not anything. It was just business. A woman I had never met before that morning had just decided the next 8 years of my life. I wrote the first check that October. I sat in my truck outside the bank for 20 minutes before I mailed it. The memo line was blank because I could not think of one printable word to put on it. She kept the kids most of the school week because of my shift schedule. I got every other weekend and my off days. She stayed in a rental 15 minutes away, and the fence contractor divorced his wife and kept his business, and I assumed the two of them would get married inside a year. That first winter, I ordered the DNA kits and tested both kids. I knew when the receipt started. I did not know when the two of them did. They are mine, both of them. I wanted them to get married. I checked the county marriage records every few months because the day she remarries, the alimony ends automatically. That is written into the judgment. No lawyer, no hearing. They did not get married. Year 1, I told myself they were being careful. Year 2, I stopped checking. I sold my boat that year, a 22-footer I had for 9 years, paid off, gone. The buyer brought his son to the dock, and the kid ran his hand down the rail, the exact way my boy used to. I took the check, shook his hand, and drove home with an empty trailer rattling behind me. My son asked where the boat went. I told him it was getting fixed. That lie lasted a year before he stopped asking. $4,100 in rent and child support and $4,900 in alimony does not leave room for a boat. I picked up Saturday classes at the fire academy teaching rookies how to throw ladders. 51 years old, teaching 20-year-olds so her check would clear. 2 years and 7 months in, I had paid her $151,000. And then my daughter asked me to fix her bike. It was a Friday pickup. The kids came out to my truck, and my daughter's rear brake was dragging. And I said I would fix it Sunday at my place. And she said, "You do not have to. We have tools now." I said, "What tools?" And she said, "Mom's friend keeps all his tools in our garage. His workbench too. There is a whole wall of them." I kept my face flat. The job taught me that. I asked her, easy as I could, "Does his truck fit in there too?" And my son said, "That is where it goes every night. He moves it out at breakfast. Every night, he moves it out at breakfast." The man was not visiting. The man lived in that house with my children and hid the truck so the neighbors and I would never see it in the driveway. It had been going on long enough that a 9-year-old thought it was normal. I drove home and I did not sleep. She was almost 3 years gone and I did not want her back. What kept me up was the money. I was selling my Saturdays to pay a woman who had a working man living in her house, splitting nothing, hiding his truck so nobody could prove he lived there. Monday morning, I called my divorce attorney. He listened for 2 minutes, and the word he gave me back was cohabitation. Then he explained the law that changed everything. In this state, remarriage is not the only thing that ends alimony. The statute has a name for what she was doing: a supportive relationship, living with someone, sharing a household, functioning like a married couple without the paperwork. When that happens, a judge can cut the alimony or end it. He said the reason she never married the man was sitting right there in the statute. Marriage ends the checks automatically. Living together only ends them if I can prove it. Then he gave me the best advice $300 an hour ever bought. He said, "Do not prove it yourself. Stay away from that house. Hire a professional, because judges do not like angry ex-husbands with cameras, and they love boring men with logbooks." The investigator was a retired sheriff's deputy, 22 years, flat voice, drove a gray sedan you would never look at twice. He brought a yellow legal pad to a diner by the highway and asked me questions for an hour. What shift I worked, what kind of truck the man drove, and I realized I knew the answer because my son had described it to me down to the tow hitch. He quoted me 85 an hour plus mileage, and then he told me the rules, and the rules are why it worked. Everything from public property, no cameras on her house, no tracker on anybody's vehicle, no talking to the kids, ever. Everything time-stamped, everything logged, everything something he could raise his right hand and swear to. Then he said, "Most guys hire me for 2 weekends and think that is a case. It is not. One night does not prove a thing. A judge needs a pattern. Give me 12 weeks, and I will hand your lawyer something no judge can wave off. 12 weeks. I put it on the card I keep for emergencies, kept teaching my Saturdays, and I never told a soul. His first report came as a spreadsheet. No drama, no commentary, just entries. Truck absent from the street, 5:40 a.m. Garage door up, 6:12 a.m. Truck backs out, man at the wheel. He photographed the truck coming out of that garage at first light, time-stamped, 81 mornings out of 84. The 3 misses. The man was out of town at a fencing trade show, and the investigator documented that too because it showed where he slept when he was not there. Nowhere else. He had nowhere else. And on the evenings before those 81 mornings, the truck arrived between 8 and 10, and the garage door came down behind it. He came in by the keypad. No knock, no key. Week 5, the trash cans. 2 people generate twice the trash of one, and the cans went out full every week. On top of one of them, in an open bag, sat a torn open box for a garage door keypad, his and hers gym water bottles, and mail. The investigator photographed one envelope. The man's business, his fencing company, listed her home address as its mailing address on a supplier invoice. Week 6, the dog. The man had a chocolate lab, the one my kids talked about at every pickup, and the investigator pulled the county license renewal. The dog was registered at her address, and the listed veterinary clinic was the one where my ex-wife runs the front office. A small thing, but it went in the file. Week 7, the boat. The man kept a fishing boat on a trailer, and the trailer's registration, public record, listed her address. His business mail, his boat, his dog, his truck, his tools on a wall in my kid's garage. Week 9 was the one that put it away. The investigator ran the man's name through the court's civil index, standard background pass, and found a small claims filing from 14 months earlier. The man versus a wedding venue, fighting to get a canceled booking deposit back. The filing had the date, the venue, and the word wedding. They had been engaged. They planned the wedding, and somebody did my math in reverse, and they canceled it, and he started parking in the garage instead. My attorney went over that page twice and smiled. He said, "This is intent. They know marriage ends the alimony, and this shows they are structuring their whole life around not triggering it while living married in every way that counts." Week 10, the practice. My son plays fall ball, and the man has started helping coach, which I already knew about. The investigator sat in the bleachers at a public field with 40 other parents and got pictures of the 3 of them walking to her car afterward, the man carrying my son's bat bag. They drove off together in her car. His truck was not even there. They had ridden together 20 minutes each way. Week 12, the last entry, a Saturday cookout in her backyard, and the investigator never left the public sidewalk. Cars out front, and at 6:15 in the evening, the man stood at the grill in an apron while her parents, my former in-laws, sat at the patio table. Her father shook his hand goodbye. Her mother hugged him. The people who sat in the second row at my wedding, hugging the fence contractor at the house my alimony was paying for. That was the last page of the log. 12 weeks, 140 pages, and not one of them taken anywhere but a public street or a public field. We filed the petition on a Monday, 94 days after my daughter asked me to fix her bike. She was served at the clinic on her lunch break. I did not choose that. I will not pretend I lost sleep over it. My phone rang 20 minutes into her lunch break, and I let it go to voicemail. The voicemail was her, furious. I had some nerve accusing her of things after everything she had been through. Her lawyer would bury this. I was doing this to the kids, not to her. 17 years I knew that voice, and one listen told me what was in it. She was panicking, and she would not have been panicking if it was not true. My attorney called her attorney that week and offered to resolve it quietly. Her answer was no. She wanted to fight it, which told my attorney everything he needed about how little her own lawyer had been told. Her response, under oath, in a written answer, was that the man was an occasional overnight guest. I was allowed to sit in on her deposition. I have replayed what happened about 400 times. My attorney asked her how often the man stayed over. She said once or twice a week, maybe. He asked if the man kept belongings at the house. She said a toothbrush, some clothes, normal boyfriend things. He asked if the man received mail there. She paused and said, "Not that I know of." Then he opened the folder, the supplier invoice with her address, the trailer registration with her address, the photograph of the workbench. He had gotten that one by asking her to produce photos of the garage interior in Discovery, and she had handed them over because her own attorney did not know what was in her garage. And then the log, 81 mornings. He slid it across the table page by page and asked her in that level lawyer voice if once or twice a week had a different meaning that she would like to share with the court. He asked her one more question before the break. He asked whether she was familiar with a wedding venue about half an hour north, and he named it. She said no. He put the small claims paperwork on the table, 14 months old, her boyfriend's name, suing to get his wedding deposit back. Then he asked if she wanted to revisit any of her earlier answers while the court reporter was still fresh. Her attorney asked for a break. They were gone 40 minutes. When they came back, the word occasional was withdrawn, and within 3 weeks, we had a signed settlement. She did not want the engagement deposit entered into a courtroom record where her sister and her mother could hear it. My attorney never threatened anything. He just listed the exhibits. The court entered the order. Alimony terminated, effective the month we filed, and the 3 checks I wrote while the case was pending came back to me as a credit. 62 payments never made, $4,900 a month times 62 months, $303,800 that stayed in my life instead of leaving it. The settlement made her responsible for $9,000 of my attorney and investigator costs on top. Her lawyer had seen the exhibits. He knew what a judge would do with the word occasional. The whole case, attorney, investigator, filing fees, cost me a little under $15,000. The investigator's final invoice had a handwritten line at the bottom. It said, "Tell your daughter thanks for the referral." Flat voice, that guy, even on paper. The kids never saw a courtroom and never will. Nothing changed for them except the truck parks in the driveway now, in the open. It is not my house and she is not my wife, and what they do was never the point. The point was I was paying for it. The first 2 checks I never had to write turned into 2 college accounts, one for my daughter, one for my son, $4,900 each, because the first money freed should land on the kids. I still teach at the academy, 1 Saturday a month now instead of 4. Turns out I like the rookies when I am not doing it to make a payment. My son got the boat ride he had been asking about for 3 years, because 8 months after the order, I bought another boat, smaller, older, cash. First thing I did was take both kids out on it, and my daughter sat up front with the wind in her face. She has no idea, and she will not for a long time, that the whole thing turned on a rear brake dragging on a Friday afternoon. My ex called me once after the settlement, the only time we have talked about it. She asked how long I had her followed. I told her the truth. I never had you followed. I had my money followed, and it kept ending up at your house. She hung up. The check stopped. See you in the next one.